Good afternoon and welcome to today's Adweek webinar, a playbook for first-time CTV advertisers. Today's webinar is sponsored by MNTN. I'm Annie Hildebrand, Studio Manager of Adweek Branded's Content Studio, and I'll be your host today. So as we get started, I want to take a minute to let folks know what to expect from today's event and make sure everyone's familiar with some of the features of our platform. Today's webinar should go somewhere in the 25-30 minute range, and after that we will have some time for audience Q&A. So if you have any questions for our speaker during the presentation, go ahead and use that Q&A tool beneath the video window on your screen, and we'll get through as many questions as we can after the presentation. It's also not too late to invite your friends, colleagues to join us today at the webinar. You should have gotten a reminder email about 15 minutes ago, and in that there is a link to the registration page that you can share with anyone that you think will enjoy today's topic. There's time for them to join us live, but if they can't, this webinar is being recorded so they can watch the on-demand version. And that on-demand version will be available to everyone else that is joining us live. So we'll be sending a link later today around 3:30 Eastern that has that on-demand webinar version. And if you'd like a PDF of today's slide deck, you can find that in the event resources area, which is also beneath the video player on your screen. You'll see also a link to our resource library there, which has new guides, research, and white papers added regularly. That also includes some of our latest research with today's sponsor, MNTN, on CTV measurement and attribution. So if you're looking for other ways to stay up to date on all things CTV and marketing, be sure to check that out. But now let's kick things off and meet today's speaker. Today, we are joined by Matt Collins, Head of Product Marketing at MNTN. Matt oversees product marketing at MNTN and provides advertising software for brands to drive measurable conversions, revenue, site visits, and more through the power of television. He has over 15 years of B2B marketing leadership experience, the last 8 of which he's spent in ad tech with stints at Roku, Simul Media, and Ampush. We are so excited to have Matt to talk about this timely topic. So everyone, welcome Matt. Thank you for joining us. Oh, you're muted, sorry.
There we go. I'm unmuted now. I do some of my very best work on mute. But Annie, thank you very much for the kind introduction. And thank you all for taking a moment here to join us. I'm very excited to talk about this today. This is the topic that we're going to discuss is a passion point of mine. And I want to start with a story which I have told before, and I may have even told on an Adweek webinar before, but it's super relevant to the topic. You know, when I was first getting into business, I was very fortunate that my very first job landed me at a video game publisher, and I was the marketing manager assigned to a portfolio of video game titles. And I was fortunate that not only to be able to work in a playful industry like video games, but that several of those games had as a part of their go-to-market television advertising. And I think it's so often the case when any of us are starting out and doing something for the very first time. I remember working out my budget for the launch of that title, including media and creative spending, what it would cost to make the commercials and the advertisements that we would run. And I had never made a TV commercial before, so I asked the very natural question of my colleagues, how much does a TV commercial cost? I now know that's sort of like asking how much does a car cost and how much does a house cost? It's a huge range of things, so that question isn't always necessarily terribly useful. But I had to have a starting point, and a colleague of mine said, write in $200,000, that's about how much it's going to cost to get a TV commercial done. So from that point on, whenever I needed to make a TV commercial, I just budgeted $200,000 to do it. And fast forward a few years later, I'd still been doing this, and I was getting ready to propose a budget for a title that was also going to need TV. And so I wrote in, just like clockwork, $200,000 for my creative budget. And I got the dreaded see me email from our CMO at the time. And that's never a good thing. So I went over into his office and he sat me down and he said, look, Matt, the budget here just does not support $200,000 for your creative to make a TV commercial for this product launch. But I'll tell you what I can do. I'll give you $50,000 for your creative. And I will admit at that moment, I was much younger at the time, I had a mini meltdown in his office. I'm sure I crossed my arms over my chest and I said, boss, that's not possible. Like, we're going to get crap. Like, there's no way I'm going to get anything that's going to be any good. We're all going to regret it. Maybe we should just keep our powder dry and not spend the money at all. And he said, look, you're going to be just fine. $50,000 is going to get you a great ad. And here's why. That $50,000 at that budget is going to remove a lot of options that otherwise might be available to your creative team. It's going to force them to deliver something that's simple. And with that, I think you're going to find that you're going to move a lot faster. This is going to come together a lot quicker. And in the end, you're going to be very happy with the result. There's a lot fewer options to consider, fewer options to execute, and simplicity has a way of bringing along its friend efficiency. And boy, was he right. We delivered a great ad. He proved me absolutely wrong, and it was something that I've carried with me ever since. And I think it's especially relevant as we talk all the time here at Mountain, a self-serve connected TV ad platform built for performance marketers that works just like search and social. We talk all the time to brands who've never been on TV before. And a lot of time, they have a friend who has a friend who told them, like, you can't get on TV unless you spend 6 figures on media and or creative. And we know those things aren't true. And so we're going to talk today about how to get it, how to actually do it right. And so if I'm going to see if I can advance my slides. There we go. So what we've got teed up for you today, we're going to talk about the landscape that all advertisers today in TV are entering into as we roll into 2025. And then I'm going to focus specifically on those in the audience who might be smaller brands, maybe you're yourself brand new to TV advertising and still finding your way, or you haven't yet advertised on TV and would really like to. And we're going to talk about how brands just like you crack on to get into the game and the best ad units ever made, the 15 and 30-second TV commercial on the biggest screen in the home. Then we'll talk about whether you're a first-time advertiser, or you've been doing it for years the way I have. I'll share some tips and strategies about how to produce ads that are more likely than not to achieve the outcome that you care about. And then we will finish with a gateway to some examples featuring advertisers just like you, or maybe we're where many of you are just not very long ago. And so you can go there for some inspiration. And as we're going through this, please, please, please ask your questions. I want to let you know we'll have plenty of time for your questions, as Annie said. So ask them and we'll get to your questions at the very end. So I want to start with the fact that, let's see, today it is, as we record this, Thursday, February 6th. The NFL, the National Football League's biggest moment is waiting for us on Sunday, February 9th. That's just 3 days away. It's the championship game, the big game, the Super Bowl. And in addition to it being a massive sporting event, it's also, I think, the unofficial start of the marketing new year. I've said this before, but the marketing calendar from marketers turns over on Super Bowl. Why? Because the biggest brands in the world have a coming out party with all new ad creative that we're going to be talking about certainly during the game. I know Ad Week will be talking about it during the game, and then on Monday, and then for days and weeks to come, we're going to be seeing these ads and chatting about them, and they're certainly hoping, the advertisers are hoping, that we're going to react to them, that we're going to feel better about their brands, or we're going to take action. Why do I mention this? Well, I mention it because it's super relevant, and by the way, it's a moment where on the calendar now, everybody in the United States is going to be talking about something that most of us here in some way do for a living. They're going to be talking about the advertising business. Now, having said all of that, the access to the game for an advertiser is maybe even harder and more exclusive than it is to get an on-the-field ticket to go to the game. I think the cost of a 30-second ad this year eclipsed $8 million. That's a big price tag that most advertisers can't afford. It's all sold out. So exactly where are we going with all this? That would be a very reasonable question to ask at this point. Well, I mention it because the environment in which all of these ad dollars are being transacted and in which the viewership is all going to be rallying around their nachos and their wings and their pizzas for the big game, all of that dynamic is changing. So this year we observed this football season, we've observed that local TV ratings for NFL games have declined. That's almost certainly because that viewership, they're still watching the game. They're just preferring to watching it on streaming. In fact, 52% of TV watchers today indicate that streaming is their primary viewing preference. That's where they want to start. And not surprisingly, ad dollars are following viewers as they always do. eMarketer forecasts that this year, advertisers in the United States alone will spend more than $33 billion on advertising, and that is expected to grow to nearly $47 billion by 2028, by which time, if forecasting is accurate, connected TV advertising will surpass advertising spent on linear TV. So this landscape that advertisers are entering into and that we're all talking about this week is very different from what it was a year ago, and certainly very different from the way it was 5 years ago. So what's powering this growth? Well, it's a new crop of advertisers. These are a lot of the companies that are driving the change in connected TV advertising are brand new to television. In fact, 93% of Mountain's customers have never advertised on TV before using Mountain. And what they're realizing is that, you know what, they don't need huge budgets for either media or creative to be able to test connected TV advertising, to get a read on what works and to scale from there. It's also a medium that we here at Mountain use. Mountain is a significant spender on connected TV advertising to promote our business to companies like yours. And so we use our own platform to run TV ads that are meant to get your attention and hopefully have you visit our website and either request a demo or just sign up to create an account, which comes with no strings attached. And in fact, our TV advertising initiatives drive 25% of our site traffic. So we know that it works in really driving volume. And what we've seen and what our thousands of customers have realized is that with connected TV advertising, brands of virtually any size and scope and in any vertical or business can make a big impact, and not just at a single moment in time in the second Sunday in February. Now, the one here, I'm gonna reveal a sort of a secret that's hiding in plain sight for most marketers, and that is that when it comes to advertising, the most important thing that we as advertisers can get right is the creative itself. It's the power of the storytelling and the acting and the casting and the voiceover and the effects and the music all coming together to leave an impression. And that's what I refer to when I talk about the power of creative. It's all those things coming together. And that alchemy is really what's responsible for driving the bulk of campaign results. In fact, in 2023, just a couple of years ago, NC Solutions, formerly known as Nielsen Catalina, did a study on sales lift. And they looked at the impact of incremental sales by a variety of different inputs that we all rely upon for driving marketing. Things like recency and frequency and channels used and the power of creative. And what they found was that 49% of incremental sales we can chalk up to how effective the ad was, the commercial was itself, or the ad unit itself. Everything else combined is 51%. And that is striking, but it's even more striking when you put it into the context of what marketers believe the number was before actually hearing it. That 49% is 2.5 times larger than what most marketers think that it is. And it's understandable. We spend a lot of time as marketers really thinking about how do we perfect our audience targeting? How do we perfect our budgeting? How do we perfect timing? How do we think about reach and frequency? And those are all super important considerations. I don't want to diminish them. But what this study and others have shown is that you got to get creative right. And if you do it right, creative can cover for a lot of sins in the media math of advertising, especially on TV. But if you don't get it right, your media math could be flawless. But if the creative stinks, your campaign is almost certainly going to underperform. The other thing which I'll mention about creative, and here we are right on the precipice of seeing a lot of great ads. I can't wait to see the ads on Sunday, is that ads are kind of like fashion. they're fleeting. The first time we see them, they can really grab our attention, and they can hold that attention for a little while, but eventually ad creative becomes familiar. And with that familiarity becomes a higher likelihood of tuning out or feeling like there's nothing new there. So I think what the most successful advertisers have realized is that ads are fleeting, brands can be durable. And one way to build a durable brand is to continue to invest in creative all year round, not just in the build up to the biggest advertising event on the calendar year. Fortunately, there are now programs and offerings and resources that make it so much easier for brands to build that durable presence, that durable meaning with customers, by not just investing in creative and not feeling like, as I did for many years, that I had to spend, multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars to get powerful creative. They can do it for a lot less, and they can get that creative faster, and they can get it in ways that allow them to test more, to get a better read on what's actually working. Mountain is one of those providers that can do that. And so the key to making it all possible is QuickFrame. QuickFrame is a company Mountain acquired just a few years ago. And the shorthand description here, I'm simplifying this a lot for the purposes of keeping this tight so we can get more time for your questions, is that QuickFrame, think of it as like an Uber of video maker experts. And so it is a marketplace that brings together brands and agencies who need creative, and video makers located all over the world, thousands of them, who are specialists in just about anything someone needing video might need. You can go into that marketplace, and if what you have right now, like a lot of our customers, are social videos in portrait mode, like for TikTok and Instagram Reels, and you want to see, hey, can I take this portrait video and make it landscape the way TVs are? We've got video makers in QuickFrame who can do that. If you have big ambitions and you actually want to be on the Super Bowl maybe next year, and you want to do a live shoot in Australia and have casting and strategy and all of that taken care of, QuickFrame can deliver that too. It's not an agency. There is no agency of record. There's no retainer to sign. There's no commitment. It's appealing in part because it gives users the flexibility to go into the marketplace to get exactly the talent type that they need, the specialist that they need, rather than relying on generalists who may not have the expertise in the very specific thing that they require to bring their campaign to life. Another program worth mentioning that Mountain has that's an exclusive is a product called Creative as a Subscription, or CAS as we call it. And CAS is a program that allows advertisers to acquire credits, creative credits, based on their media spend and a media commitment. And with those credits, they can then redeem across a broad menu of different creative services, everything from, maybe swapping in a new voiceover, or changing out the music, or swapping out an end card on your, the last frame that a customer sees on your commercial for something new, maybe to accommodate a all new offer, all the way through to, hey, it's a new quarter, we need an all new ad. And we've got many, many, many customers who are relying on this service, and are with this focus, this creative focus, they're really able to keep their creative fresh and avoid that sort of sense of ad fatigue, which I think we've all seen in one form or another. So you may be asking yourself at this point, well, great, can I see some examples of this? And the answer, of course, is yes. I would encourage you, I'm going to leave this slide up here for a moment while I talk to it. Take your phones out, scan that code, and it will take you to a web page on mountain.com that will show you in more depth the creative solutions I'm talking about. And that will include, by the way, a gallery of TV ads made by, say, first-time advertisers, or TV ads made across a variety of different industry verticals, including B2B. We have a significant number of B2B advertisers who are on Mountain. We have a significant number of agencies who use Mountain to help their clients grow. We have a significant number of small businesses that might only operate 1 or 2 store locations, or a modest e-commerce site, who are using Mountain to generate awareness and site traffic and store traffic. And we've got actual examples of the ads that they've built with us, and links to many more ads that you can see for inspiration, and just to see how maybe companies like yours have approached this, perhaps a similar question or challenge that you yourself might be facing. So one of the things that a lot of advertisers ask us, including seasoned ones, they all want to know, okay, great. Well, I know I need to tell a unique brand story that's going to be authentic to us, but what are some of the other things that I can do upfront in the design of my ad to give myself the best possible chance at achieving whatever my goal might be? And so, look, we have thousands of advertiser customers, and we see thousands of creatives all the time. And so we have a point of view on this. And so what I'm sharing here is a bit of a checklist, things to think about doing that would likely increase your chances of hitting your goals for your campaign, regardless of what those goals are. And I'll walk through these here. First of all, my father used to say, and this is a very sort of 80s and 90s comment, maybe a little 70s in here too, but my father used to say, there is no great TV show that had a lousy theme song. And I haven't been able to prove him wrong on that. But I think the corollary in TV advertising is your ad needs a hook. It needs something that's going to grab attention and hold attention. You only got 15 or 30 seconds to be able to engage that viewer. And oftentimes there's distraction during a commercial break. Your customer might be reaching for a phone or might be going to grab a snack. So what's your hook to make them want to peek their head up and spend some time looking and paying attention to what you have to say? How much are you bringing your brand to life in the actual creative? Is your logo present? Are you giving your viewers a URL that they can click on afterwards to go and learn more about your particular brand? Are you mentioning it? Do you have a voice that's mentioning it during the actual ad itself? I'm skipping ahead here, but to sound. A lot of us as viewers are distracted while we may be watching. And so having a strong voiceover, music, some sound is a way of just maybe giving your ad another shot at breaking through with a customer who might otherwise not be looking at the screen while your ad is airing. Is your value proposition clear? Are you clear about what's the product that you're offering or the service that you're offering? And are you giving the customer a reason to believe that there's something unique about it? Are you finishing with a call to action that's compelling, that's time-bound, that might be joined to an offer, the classic hallmarks of performance advertising? I mentioned sound. And also, are you thinking about text? Having subtitles can be a way of being able to amp up your ad's accessibility and make it easier for people who, again, might be distracted, as we all are from time to time watching television. I'd be remiss here if I didn't also emphasize the importance of testing and aiming to optimize your creative practice. Well, all of us, ourselves included at Mountain, we spend a lot of time thinking about, as I said, media math and how do we perfect our knowledge of our customers and how do we think about measuring performance and doing it in ever more precise ways. But it is possible, and in fact, important for all of us to develop a creative practice where we have a point of view about what creative levers work best for our brands. And so going into any campaign with the intent of being able to make multiple versions of an ad that allow you to test those versions against one another, to be able to see what different calls to action may work, or to see what different offers may work. To understand the relative performance differences between 15s and 30s are super important. And so having a test budget that you can run all year round with your campaigns will give you a leg up in really being able to learn what's working best and how do you do more of those things, so that as you're thinking about the next campaign, you might be able to save some time and money by bringing that knowledge and sort of the answers to the test that you've learned from previous efforts. We're getting near the very end of my part of this before we're going to hear from you. So please do log your questions and we'll get to those. So I'm going to finish up here with my takeaways. If you remember nothing else about this discussion, I hope you leave with these three thoughts. The first is, look, the Sunday's big game is the coming out party for the biggest brands. It's the start of the unofficial start of the marketing calendar for 2025. But it is just a launching point. And every single day, connected TV advertisers are learning and seeing that they can get a big audience at modest test budgets, and they can reach them with distinctive ad creative that didn't break the bank to make. And companies like Mountain have programs specifically designed for first-time advertisers to be able to get on the air with something that really speaks to your brand and will allow you to learn quickly and then scale accordingly and scale profitably with your advertising in a way that's not only going to build your brand, but importantly, is going to drive an increase in revenue and drive an increase in customer growth, subscribers, and help to bring your return on that ad spend up to help you not only make that campaign successful, but also perhaps to fund the marketing budget for your next quarter. And if you follow the best practices that we've outlined here, and I encourage all of you to download this so you have that punch list available to you. If you follow those best practices and overlay it with your best storytelling, you have every opportunity to really shine in your debut on connected TV advertising. So with that, I'm going to pull up the Q&A, and Annie, invite you back in and we can get to some of the audience questions.
Thanks for all of that info, Matt. I wrote down what you said of ads are fleeting, brands are durable. I was like, we need to get that on some throw pillows in the Adweek office. It's so true. So we do have some time for questions. We'll get to as many as we can in the next 5 to 10 minutes. And like Matt said, you can ask that question in that Q&A tool that you'll see beneath the video window. And if we don't get to your questions, we'll forward it on to Matt so he can has the opportunity to reply offline. But before we get to our Q&A, just a couple of reminders. Today's webinar has been recorded and will be available on demand later this afternoon. So we'll be emailing everyone a link to that recording. And then if you want a copy of today's slides, you can also find those in the event resources area on your screen. But first, we have questions. So our first question we have from Limmy. What are some emerging best practices for B2B audience assessment when selecting CTV deals?
That's a great question, Limmy. Thank you for asking that. I think when it comes to selecting audiences, I think it helps to take a step back for B2B advertisers on television and really be careful about understanding the objective in the first place. And one of the areas where I have consistently seen B2B advertisers thinking and acting differently than their B2C counterparts. And Mountain, by the way, is in this very same category for B2B. We think about how do we drive customers into our conversion engine, into our website or into our platform. And we measure it based on the volume that we drive, not so much based on whether at the end of that, they're going to swipe the credit card and actually spend. Because we know that spending on a product like TV advertising can be a highly considered process. It can take some weeks before customers select that. And so what we do want is to drive those users in. And we also know that customers are in B2B are much more likely to transact with brands that they know. And so using connected TV as both a top of funnel and mid funnel tool is especially appealing to B2B in ways that might be a little bit different than B2C, where it's like bottom of funnel and like really driving that conversion event. And so my advice in thinking about audience building, especially for B2B, is to aim broadly and not to get too over specific. And I remember learning this and had my eyes opened by the B2B Institute at LinkedIn, which pointed out that when it comes especially to emerging advertising channels, and I don't think connected TV is emerging anymore, but a few years ago it was, oftentimes companies will create a committee that reviews that emerging channel and will oftentimes assign tasks to individual contributors, sometimes with very modest job titles, to go and pull together data on that particular channel and to develop a recommendation or a point of view about its desirability. And I mention all of this because when it comes to building an audience, I think there's a danger in B2B of becoming too narrow and thinking, well, we really only want to target decision makers because they're the ones who are going to be signing the checks. And when you do that, you run the risk of cutting the legs out of your campaign in reaching not the buyer target, but perhaps the user targets, the people who might have a quieter voice in the room when it comes to deciding what to do and where to invest, but are nevertheless influential, especially when you pool those voices together. So my advice when it comes to B2B audience building is to think more broadly and to think about what you want that audience to do, especially as it relates to top of funnel and mid funnel changes of behavior. But thanks, Lindy. That's a great question.
Okay, next up we have a question from Ryan. How does the impact of AI generated content affect ad creative?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was just talking about this with a colleague of mine yesterday, and we've seen some examples, haven't we, over the last several months from some big brands who have experimented with generative AI in their commercials. I think Coca-Cola is the one that comes to my mind most recently. And I think these tools rather are super powerful. Generative AI for building video, I think is very, very powerful. Where I think we're going to net out on this, though, Annie, is that we're gonna come out to this notion of good, better, best for building ad creative. And I think what we're going to come to see is that generative AI can get a lot of advertisers to good pretty reliably, and maybe still require a bit of human intervention to take a concept that a generative AI produces, do some refining of it, and get to something that we might say is good. But I think for the time being and for the foreseeable future, to get to better best, we're going to still need humans who have the humanity, have the contextual wherewithal, the larger why behind the campaign, to be able to really come up with something that's likely to resonate. So I think generative AI has a big role to play in how ads come together. And I think it's going to be able to produce some good content, but I think humans are going to still be on top of the ads that really have us remembering them in the right way.
Especially with creative being so important right now, what humans can do is definitely where the better best exists.
Yeah.
Let's move to the next question we have from Fernanda. How much are companies investing in their CTV marketing mix?
How much well, that's a good question. And I will say that, and thank you, Fernanda, for asking that question. Of course, this varies an awful lot. And any exploration of any ad channel should begin, in my view, with a analysis of your customer and understanding who are they, how many of them are there, where are they congregating, and that sort of thing. But what I will say is that a typical mountain customer will start with, say, a $15,000 to $25,000 test budget in media to then go and see, how that channel performs. They set their expectation for performance based on the length of a typical sales cycle for their brand, or whatever that is. And they have the ability to adjust the attribution window in the platform to match that sales cycle. And Mountain has a helpful tool in the platform, and other advertisers do it a little bit differently. But Mountain has a tool that allows you to see your high intent audiences, your highest intent audiences, based on a read of what your company does, the customers that are out there that are interested in products like yours, based on their shopping behavior, major life changes they might be going through based on their browsing interest, et cetera. We can get a nice view of that customer and begin to segment it out into those who are highest intent. And the tool will tell you, here's how many high intent users you have, people who are likely to buy right now, and how much it would cost to reach them with your campaign. So while that $15,000 to $25,000 test budget range is a useful sort of rule of thumb, the tool itself, going into the platform, which requires no commitment to create an account and start playing with the tool, you can actually see how much it would cost for each of your individual brands to be able to reach and then convert people who are quite likely to buy based on their a holistic view of their profiles. So I hope that's helpful. It's a great question, Fernanda, and appreciate you raising your hand.
All right. Our next question is from JM. Are impressions a good way to measure the value of a CTV buy? Are there other metrics that we should focus on? And how can I measure ROI of a CTV buy?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm going to actually start with the last part of this, is how can I measure the ROI of a CTV buy? And JM, thanks for asking the question. Mountain has an attribution system that is built specifically for TV advertising. We call it verified visits. It is a measurement practice that is accepted by both Google Analytics and Rockerbox, two very common, popular third-party measurement systems that allow you to see how your different channels perform, all sort of in the same tool. So you can compare connected TV to your paid social and to your paid search. And verified visits works fairly simply. It works like this. You as an advertiser, in setting up your campaign, you get to define that conversion window, meaning the length of time you're comfortable with between when an ad was seen and when an action takes place, like visiting your website or buying your product, that you would feel comfortable as an advertiser attributing to the exposure to that ad. So you get to play with whatever that number is, set it in the tool. Then we know if an ad has been served to your audience, and if it's been served and then viewed in its entirety on television, and then if an action takes place within that conversion window, that attribution window that you set at the onset of the campaign, then that gets chalked up as a verified visit. If they, specifically the action here is, did they go visit your website? And if they go to visit your website, then we chalk that up as attributable to the TV campaign that they saw. And then you can go into the tool, you can see how many verified visits that you have, and then from those, how many of them actually ended up converting to whatever your end goal is, presumably buying something, subscribing to a product, signing up or something. So ROI, this is how our customers measure return on their investment or return on ad spend, is that they're looking at starting with that notion of how many site visits that they attract, and of those, how many of them end up converting. To answer your other questions, impressions, I don't think are particularly useful at measuring the efficacy of advertising. And I say this because I've gotten the stink eye from CFOs CFOs that I've worked for, when I've gone in and said, I got so many impressions at a CPM, they're like, great, I don't know what to do with that. I think it depends so much on your point of view. The advertisers with Mountain tend to see connected TV advertising as revenue generating in some way, contributing to revenue. If you see it as a cost to minimize, it can certainly change your perspective on what it is that you need to measure. But we certainly advocate for thinking about and measuring revenue, website visits, return on ad spend, completed views, which is another way of saying at least how many exposures you had to your customer. We think those are all more valuable. So I think I've answered all three of those questions, but I know, look, we know measurement is a hot topic for advertisers. We'll probably continue to be talking about this throughout the rest of the year. So thanks, Jan, for the question.
All right, we have a question from Mima. Many CTV metrics focus on immediate engagement, but brand growth often happens over longer cycles. What should agencies be doing to ensure CTV campaigns are driving long-term brand equity, not just short-term performance for B2C brands and clients?
That is a great question, Mima. I think the good news about television advertising in this medium is that it is inherently a brand building asset. And I say that for a couple of reasons. The first is the first ever TV ad that aired in the United States happened in the summer of 1941 during a then New York Giants baseball game. It was for the watch company Bulova. And that means that we are going on 84 years as a society of having grown accustomed to TV ads being a part of our viewing experience, and in some ways underwriting the cost of the content that we all enjoy. You compare that to mobile ads on our phones. I'm guilty of this as anybody. As a marketer, I feel guilty saying this. That how many times I get served an ad and I just flick right past it, or I just skip it because I can, or I'm distracted by something else on my phone because I am. And TV has this unique quality of being a part of our upbringings, many of us, most of us, I would say, and a very familiar platform. And it's also this 15 to 30-second canvas for telling a story compared to maybe 6 seconds on a mobile ad before you get tired and move on. So we have more oxygen to tell a better story. And so I think there are a couple of things agencies can think about doing from a creative lens and from a customer communication perspective. When it comes to creative, it's to think about all the hallmarks of good storytelling. What is that hook? Do you have a compelling cast of characters that are bringing that hook to life, that story to life? Do you have the right scenery, the right setting for this, whether it's done through animation or live action or within your product itself? And you can bring in a layer on a performance element by having a really thoughtful end slate that might say, redeem, remember this code and redeem at checkout, or visit now to get 10% off your first purchase. And these are the sorts of things that give it a performance hook. That might only be on screen for 4 seconds, but the other 26 seconds of a 30-second ad you can devote to great hallmarks of brand building. So from a creative lens, that's how I would think about it. I think from a communication lens, I think it's important for an agency to communicate to their clients that advertising is about building not only and targeting people who are in market for your product right now and ready to buy right now, but it's about building awareness for the people who are not in market now, but might be in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months time. And the way to do that, quite frankly, is to show up regularly. It's not to advertise in doses and then, be on air for a month and disappear for 4 months. It requires irregular dialogue with customers and changing up your creative message over time, and know that if you continue to do that, you not only will give yourself a chance at grabbing customers and attracting customers who are ready to take their purses and wallets out right now and buy, but also you'll appeal to people who are saying, you know what, maybe sometime down the line, and I'm glad to know you, brand, because I see you, and if you keep showing up and reminding me that you're relevant, I'm very likely to buy, but maybe not today. So those are some of the things that I would think about, but it's a great question, Mima.
Such a great point. Momentum is such a big thing, and kind of goes back to the ads are fleeting, brands are durable, and that's how you can build momentum, is by continuing to showing up. Otherwise, that durability is a little harder to have.
You're exactly right.
Okay. Our next question is from Paul. What are your thoughts on the importance of ad relevance and contextual targeting, and how can Mountain help with that?
That's a terrific question. So Mountain is an audience-based platform, which means that marketers, agencies and brands define the audience that they want to build. We have a variety of different audience tools. Very quickly, we have a tool called Mountain Matched, which I alluded to earlier, but didn't name that way. Mountain Matched is the tool that allows for a marketer to let our platform learn through AI what their product and service does, then recommend keywords that we then match to audiences. And that, by the way, an advertiser can edit those keywords, but we then match those to audiences who are in market for products like that. And then we allow a marketer to see, here's how many high intent customers who are likely to buy right now you can reach. Here are how many medium intent they may buy sometime in the next weeks or so. And here are many maximum reach customers who not in the market today, but could be at some point down the line, and what it costs to reach them and how many there are. That's just one way of building an audience. Another way is through behavioral targeting, through third-party tools like LiveRamp. We have CRM targeting. So if you have a customer list and you can upload those and we can match those on television. We offer prospecting and retargeting, but it all comes down to what they all have in common, Annie, is that these are audience-based tools. So our point of view, our thesis is that contextual targeting can be useful, I think, probably more for brand association and being able to hook your brand to a particular network or streaming network or a show that you think gives you prestige or the right sort of sensibility for your customer. But it's really, really difficult for us to make broad sweeping assumptions about what our customers are going to be watching based on demographic or even behavioral signals. I am a big fan. I'm coming out with this. I love the Golden Girls. I remember kind of liking it in the 80s. Might have been on a little bit after my bedtime, but I love it now. And it is for the fashions of it, these were 4 extraordinarily gifted comedians. and the comedy has aged awfully well. Do I fit the profile of a Golden Girls watcher? Probably not, but someone who is targeting contextually might miss me. Whereas an audience-based approach that says we care about reaching Matt, whatever it is that he's watching, whether it's Golden Girls or a cooking show or sports or whatever, we feel is more effective. And so there's a place for all of these. I'm not saying that one is right or wrong, but certainly I think for driving a performance outcome, we want to be able to reach customers regardless of what they're watching, no judgment attached.
And we'd never judge you for watching Golden Girls. It's such a good show.
Thank you, Annie.
We'll do one last question for you. What is your prediction for the upcoming year for brands using CTV?
Prediction for the year for brands using connected TV. I think we are going to see, number one, fewer and fewer brands saying, I'm not so sure I should be on connected TV, please convince me. And more of them saying, I know I need to be there, now I need to figure out why or how. And that's a very short leap from that to a lot more brands getting into the game than we have today. I remember having a conversation with a colleague of mine at a previous employer. I'm gonna get this wrong, but I think directionally it's right. Who said that, like, I'm not gonna name the company, but it was one of the big television broadcasters, that their broadcast TV network had under 200 advertisers on it at the national level, year round. And I just think connected TV, you're going to see tens of thousands of customers who are able to break in and do something meaningful. Because while the inventory is still precious and premium, the ability to target audiences uniquely and serve ads uniquely into homes based on their interest really opens up the inventory opportunity and allows for precision-based audience building that's simply not possible on linear, cuts down on the wastefulness, and allows a marketer to really go in and get a read quickly on what's working or not. We don't have to show up with the same payload, the same impression payload that we had to do with linear, just to be able to get enough impression volume in the market so that enough of those impressions would find their way to the right customer to be able to generate a response. We're unburdened by that in connected TV. And so I think this is a year for a significant uptick in adoption and where customers are going to be, or advertisers are going to be not asking themselves so much, should I do it, but when should I do it and with whom?
All right, great predictions. Maybe we'll see you in December, January, and we can see how your predictions went. But it is an exciting year for CTV, so.
I think so too. Yeah, I signed up for that any old time, and thank you for having your hand here on the tiller as we got through all this. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so those are all our questions. As we wrap up, I do want to thank Matt for his time and all of these really helpful insights for the webinar, and also our sponsor, Mountain. Just a couple final reminders from Adweek. Make sure you download the slides from that event resources tab, and then you can also check your email for a link to the on-demand webinar recording that will come in later today. And if you also had the best time during this webinar, like I did, be sure to check out our other Adweek webinars. You can look at our calendar of upcoming webinars and events at adweek.com/webinars. And again, a big thank you to Matt. Thank you to you, the audience, for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing everybody else at the next Adweek webinar. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.